Today I am doing a fresh ground flour collaboration with my friend Kaylee from Kaylee's Notebook. I am going to be doing breakfast and snacks and then head on over to my friend's channel for the dinner and desserts portion of this so you can have a nice all-encompassing view of recipes from fresh ground flour. I know that some people sometimes feel pretty intimidated by that, so we are collaborating today to help ease that in and to give you some tips and tricks and ideas on how to use all of this. I have a bunch up here and I use my Nutrimill, where am I? My Nutrimill and my Bosch mixer, which I will have discount codes and links below for you guys if you guys are interested in that and going down this fun little rabbit hole of fresh ground flour. There are so many different types of flavors and different profiles that you can get from all these fresh milled things. I have soft berries, I have white and red hard wheat berries, and there's kamut or Coruscant, I think is the other name for it, and then spelt, and then of course there's einkorn, but that is not something that I can afford personally right now. It is an amazing ancient grain, but it's just not in my budget. I stick with spelt and the kamut right now, and I'm getting great results from them. So I'm super excited to share with you my favorite breakfast recipes and snacks that work time and time again for me and my family, and I will be freezing a lot of this. So let's get started. So of course I'm starting this in the morning, and so I'm starting with waffles this morning using some fresh ground flour that I had milled a few days ago from a previous project and just kept it in the freezer. And this is really one of those simple habits that has made a big difference for me. I used to feel like I had to mill flour every single time that I needed to bake. And that just wasn't realistic in a full, busy home, especially for breakfast. I don't want to wake my children up in the morning by grinding the flour, and I definitely don't want to just skip out on the nutrition and use the all-purpose flour. And this is a great hack or a tip for anyone that's in the same season of life. If you are someone who meal preps even just a little bit or makes a calendar of the foods that you're going to be having, then grinding your flour the night before is definitely something that is possible for you to do, and just keep it in like a mason jar like I am in the freezer so that the fresh oils from the grinding don't make your flour go rancid, which is possible. However, not gonna lie, I have left mine out on the counter several times and it's tasted just fine. So to each their own, but I am trying to definitely leave it in the freezer to prolong the life of my fresh ground flour. Now, this is a non-stick waffle iron and not my favorite by any means because I do still have to spray it with some avocado oil, but it does get the job done. If you have a better one, let me know in the comments what you're currently using, and I would love to check it out. But otherwise, this definitely works for us. I do have to use a fork and tongs to get it out. Maybe I'm overcomplicating it. And if you do not have a waffle iron, this will also work for pancakes on the stove, on a griddle, or whatever you have. It's a very versatile recipe. I believe I did triple this recipe for my family of 7. So if you were watching how much I put in there, just go by the recipe card that I showed you. And of course, to make it a balanced breakfast, I am adding some sausage from Good Ranchers, and generally, we do the normal thing of maple syrup on top. However, we have been doing a lot more jams on top since I have so much made from last season. Next, I'm going to be showing you one of my favorite muffin recipes. This is my pumpkin muffin recipe on my blog. And today I'm going to be changing it up just a little bit from what I normally do. So this would be a real life kitchen moment. For recipes that do not require gluten to form, such as these muffins, you can use things like soft berries that would not be forming those gluten strands that you want for breads or anything along those lines. So that is what I'm using today. But if I wasn't doing so many projects and I had fresh ground flour in the freezer, I would just use whatever that was, whether it be buckwheat or soft or hard or any of those other flours that I have. It would work just fine. It's if you're wanting to form those gluten strands that you would want to make sure that you're using the appropriate one. I had a honey ginger jam that didn't set the way that I expected it to, and instead of tossing it or letting it sit in the pantry, I started thinking about how I could use it. So I decided to swap it in where I would normally use something like pumpkin or applesauce in this recipe. And honestly, this is where fresh ground flour baking gets really fun. You can start getting creative with what you already have. And I paired that with the soft wheat berries, like I've mentioned, which gave a lighter, softer texture, and it came together in such a flavorful muffin. And I also decided to add in this millet, which gives a really nice crunch. But I will warn you, my toddler cannot digest this. So if you or someone you know has a problem digesting corn, you may not want to do this add-on. So this recipe ended up being very slightly sweet and definitely a little unique, but that's what I love about from scratch cooking. And the more you do it, the more you learn the things that you can swap out with what you already have instead of running to the store for making a recipe. I had definitely planned on freezing at least half of these and, best of intentions, right? My kids gobbled these up for breakfast and snacks, and they are no longer with us. And the muffin loaf came out really well, and that was probably the first thing to go. So, part of today is me showing you snacks, and this is a recipe that is very, very convertible into many different things. It could be breakfast, it could be snacks, it could be a meal, it could be really anything that you want. And so today I'm going to show you how I turn this into a pizza roll. And I'm just going to be using everyday staples that I have on hand that I'm trying to get rid of in my fridge even. So this is definitely a recipe to have in your fresh ground flour arsenal. This is a yeasted bread dough, so I am starting it before I get anything else going in my kitchen so that it does have time to absorb the liquid. I like to let my ingredients rest for about 10 to 15 minutes for yeasted breads before I really knead the dough because I don't want the fresh ground flour to be tearing those gluten strands as I go. So I just let it incorporate and I let it set for about 10 to 15 minutes, go about my day, come back, and then I start kneading it. If this was a sourdough recipe, that would not need to happen. You would just incorporate it and then come back for the stretch and folds throughout the day, and it would work just the same way. On this particular day, I did end up putting this dough back into the mixer and adding just a little bit more flour to it because it was still just a tad too sticky, but everything turned out great in the end. I have used many different things to put over the tops of my bowls while my bread products are rising, and I really just can't get away from saran wrap. I have tried the beeswax, I have tried cloth covers, and it just doesn't work for me. So forgive me if you are someone that does not like saran wrap. I've tried it and it did not work. Now that the dough is rising in a warm spot over by my stove, I am going to go ahead and start these breakfast cookies. And again, these can be for breakfast, these can be for a snack. They're so versatile, they're really great to freeze. You just really can add a lot of different things to this. It's another versatile recipe to have in your arsenal. I do plan to make a lot more of these cookies because, again, I had planned to freeze them and the kids said, no, thank you, we would like them now. And because they have such good ingredients in them, it's really hard to tell them no to this cookie. And on this day, I decided to add in some chocolate chips instead of nuts, which you can totally do. You can add in things like coconut and pumpkin seeds, the millet, anything that you would really like. It would be great in here for an added crunch. For things like cookies and muffins, I do also let the batter rest for just a little bit, like I said, about 10 to 15 minutes before I really start trying to do anything with it, because I want to make sure that I have the correct consistency and texture before I put it in the oven. If your cookies come out crumbly, you probably had too much flour in them and didn't allow the liquid to absorb before adding that extra flour. So I do highly recommend that you slow down and take that step of letting everything rest with fresh ground flour. While the cookies are baking, I am prepping the cheese for the pizza rolls that will soon be rolling out and getting those ready. This dough took about 30, maybe 45 minutes to rise in a warm spot in my house. So it really doesn't take too much time, but definitely doing it in the middle of a kitchen day or when you have other things to go about your day doing is definitely something that I like doing. Another tip that I have for you if you're going to be doing things like rolls, like cinnamon rolls, pizza rolls, anything where you want a square dough, if you roll it out corner to corner, it is going to be more of a square rectangle shape and it will work so much better for you. And like I had mentioned, am getting rid of stuff that's in my fridge, like the leftover pesto that I had. And then I am getting through my Monterey Jack cheese. So I was using up the rest of that block of cheese. And we actually were out of pepperoni. So salami it was today. And this was a delicious treat slash lunch for my children because it did take them a little while to get through this because it is a very thick, hearty meal or snack, depending on what you're making. You definitely want to use something sharp when you are cutting a roll like this. I highly doubt that a twine is going to really go through things like salami, but correct me if I'm wrong, I just haven't tried it. So using a sharp bench scraper like this or a good knife is what I would recommend that you use to get some decent cuts, but you will have to poof them out a little bit so that they're a little bit more round and not so flat. I'm just going to go ahead and add a little bit of extra cheese on top because I like that. If you had some extra sauce, you could also add that on top. And again, I am adding the saran wrap to help it rise quicker. While that is rising, I am going outside to uncover my peppers that I have just planted because it was getting warm in the day and I didn't want them to cook, but at night it is still getting in the mid 40s to 50s, and peppers really don't like anything below 55. It can stunt their growth. So I'm just babying them right now. When you are doing a breakfast meal prep day, this is the aftermath. My dishwasher is drying right now because I forgot to run it last night, so I had to run it this morning. That was my fail. So, real life. I mean, it could be worse, right? If you're trying to bring more fresh ground flour into your home, this is what it can look like. It doesn't have to be complicated to be sustainable. And if you want more ideas to carry this into the rest of your day, go watch my friend Kaylee's channel next. And she's sharing more fresh ground flour meals that pair perfectly with this for dinner and dessert. Cookie time. Come take a cookie. Okay, baby, take the top one. James, you want to hand him the top cookie? Okay, James, take the top. Do you want a cookie? Yep. Here, you want a cookie? Do I need to give you a cookie?
No, I'm good. It's all dirty though.
How are they tasting, you guys?
Good. Great.
You like them, Sam Sam?
Yeah.